Lindsay, managing editor here at Backstage. You're tuning in for the first ever Backstage Fest. If you missed earlier today, we kicked things off today with Neil Patrick Harris, Sarah Bareilles, and an awesome showrunners panel. So this is wrapping up our first day. For the rest of the schedules for Thursday and Friday, head over to backstage.com/magazine. I guess the first order of business, we have Lauren Ashley Smith, Ashley Nicole Black, and Gabrielle Dennis joining us. Congratulations, ladies, on the season 3 renewal, just on the lead up to season 2 finale. How's it feel to finally be getting that news just in the last couple of days and heading into the Friday finale?
It feels awesome. I think that, like, for us, we really worked so hard and for such a long time on season 2 that, like, you know, it was such a lovely, great news to get, because we just feel so fondly about the 6 episodes, you know, the last of which people get to see on Friday. So it was a very lovely, a great feedback to get, for sure.
Yeah, and the best part is seeing all the people being like, oh, that's my show. I'm so glad it's coming out. Can it come out tomorrow? It just feels so good, especially knowing the tough year everybody had, that like people like this show that much.
Yeah, and I think that's the payoff, is that we worked so hard to make sure that we were delivering, because the pandemic, we delivered season 2 later than we expected and wanted to, but the fans have been there with us. They rocked with us. They are enjoying season 2 immensely, and they're so excited for season 3. So they're just as excited as we are. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I count myself among them as far as fans of the show, so I was thrilled to see that myself. In a statement released with the announcement, I loved Robin's phrasing on this. She said that she sees the series as a budding comedy institution where Black women can play fully realized, non-stereotypical characters. I'd love to hear your thoughts on just the fact that that space exists, the fact that you are part of that creative force and kind of the institution behind that. Was that always the mission statement of the series from season 1 to now?
Absolutely. From the second that, you know, Robin sort of invited me into her vision for the show, and she created it, and, you know, invited me in to sort of help start on season 1, she always had a very clear vision in mind that this was going to be a place where Black women could do the things that Black women have traditionally not always been allowed to do in comedy. And as many Black women as we could, you know, pull into that, under that umbrella, the better. And I think the show has absolutely delivered on that promise. And the idea that we, you know, get to do it again is just an opportunity to do that more.
Also, what is so great about this show and the way Robin created it and did the casting, someone like me coming from Full Frontal, a real late night background, people didn't even know I was an actor. So they were introduced to me in a new way, you know, on this show. But then at the same time, seeing Angela Bassett, queen of all queens, do comedy, you're still learning a new facet of her. So because we have been so limited, it's not just kind of the newbies that the show can introduce, but even the huge stars that come on this show get to show a different side of themselves. And it really shows you what the industry has been missing. And it's such a cool thing to get to be a part of.
Yeah, and just like Lauren said, like, it's the space where we don't traditionally get to do these things in the comedy space. I mean, I have a background in comedy, but most people don't know that, because I haven't been afforded the opportunities to, you know, display my talents in this capacity, in this range of this kaleidoscope of colors. So it's been just an amazing experience to kind of come on board, and with the likes of an Ashley Nicole Black, Robin, Phoebe, you know, and just really like Quinta Brunson from season 1, and our beautiful ladies, Lacey and Sky this season, to just kind of go in there with these girls and just create this full force of powerhouse magical comedy. And it's such beautiful storytelling, and it's such an honor to be a part of this institution that Robin created. And it's just like, pinch yourself. I mean, 10 years later, we'll be still talking about this show and everything, how groundbreaking it was, and how many careers hopefully it helped to propel. And it will continue to still hopefully be around as a conversation and a great place for female Black artists, comedians to come and kind of hone their skills.
Absolutely. And Gabrielle, to bounce off of that, I know that, I mean, looking at your other credits, as you say yourself, you haven't really been afforded the opportunity to flex those comedic muscles before with series like SWAT or Luke Cage. So what's that meant for you to be able to work in this space? And in what ways is it different, just like as a performer, to be flexing those muscles?
Well, I'm a ham. My mom always told me I was a ham. I came out the womb that way. I was always just a silly kid, and I went to performing arts school. So being trained and expected to know how to do everything, as many talents as one, like a triple threat is the minimum. So for me, I am just so grateful to Robin. I felt seen. It took this Black woman to see me, and I've been in this business a long time, to see something, and not even like recently. She just remembers me back when I was doing stand-up comedy and sketch, like over a decade ago. And it's just like, you are so funny, you're so talented. This will be a great opportunity for you. People don't know that, and they need to know that. And the fact that she was so in sync and in line with what my vision and my goals at that time in my career were, was like, I'm sinking too much into like the dramatic space, and I don't want to lose myself and not be able to get out of that. So I feel like she threw me that lifesaver. Here I am, and enjoying, and I feel like flourishing in this space. Like season 2 allowed me to feel more comfortable in my own skin in comedy, and to not be afraid of what the audience would think of it. Like, will they accept it? They're not used to seeing me in such a broad comedic arena. But to be able to now in season 2, and then get that extra, like we're going into junior year, it's just like, it's just very exciting to just kind of feel validated in a way, and it feels seen, and it feels especially special to be seen by one of your own peers.
Yeah, that's excellent. Lauren, I feel like in the creative space, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, all of you are just so in sync with kind of the mission statement of this series, with what makes you laugh, with exactly what you want to do here. As EP and head writer, could you walk us through a bit about what the process of building the writer's room looked like? What kind of things were checking your boxes in terms of a like-minded creative that you wanted to work with?
Totally. I think the great thing about our writers' rooms, as we assembled the writers' room for the show, every single person that we invited into the room is truly, and I'm not saying this lightly, I use this word a lot, but truly iconic. Like when you think about Ashley, an Emmy award-winning, writer from Full Frontal, like every single person that we brought into the room was not just like, oh, we'll bring in any old so-and-so. Like all of these women are iconic in their own right. And they brought such they are all so fully unique and diverse. I think that, a misconception about a room that's all Black women writers, you would think, oh, well, they all kind of like, have the same general background. That could not be further from the truth. I feel like the women in the writers' room have been more different from each other than I've been in writers' rooms where I've been the only Black person or the only woman. Like we have such a diverse depth of experience, and that's what you want in a writers' room, right? You don't want everyone to just kind of all be on the same page, because ideas will just start and finish in the same spot. So if you have someone who has an Ivy League education, and you have someone who is over 35, and you have someone who grew up in the Midwest, and you have someone who grew up on the West Coast, like that ideas get a lot more traction, ideas go a lot further. People who have different religious backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, that adds to the richness. And that's why you get to see characters that are on every end of the spectrum and in between on the show, because we have such a diversity of interest. So we have sci-fi geeks, we have rom-com lovers, we have people who are former lawyers. Like it just really, you cannot pin down anybody in the room. And that's what we want. Like we want people who have such a rich life and a real, like, just comedy badasses.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, it's apparent in the product, of course. But this is for Lauren and Ashley, since both of you are in the writer's room. I'd love to hear a bit more. The inception point of a new character, I imagine that the nature of a writer's room, you're naturally kind of yes-anding through it and seeing if something works. But at what point do you know, like, oh, this is someone or something that we really want to spend some time with and hash it out? What's that kind of ephemeral feeling when you know that you have it,
Oh, I have a really good example, actually, but I usually start all of my ideas, whether it's a character or a location or whatever the idea for the sketches, it's always something that's happening in real life. And so I have a friend who is the biggest hype woman in the world. She's just like so positive. And I knew that I wanted to base a character on her, because she's not the only person in my life like that. Like that is really a trait of Black women, that we're so supportive and so hyping of each other. And then, so I was saying this in the room to the other writers, and one of the other writers said, we do that too much. A friend of mine the other day lost her job, and my friend said, come on, unemployed. And that took it from like an idea of a person to a character, someone who's so hyped that she'll even hype up your unemployedness. Now we're in the realm of comedy, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was what kind of got me the idea for the Allie sketch, which is like she's hyping her friends to the point of danger. And then I remember that sketch had a different ending. I don't even remember what it was. And for whatever reason, we had to lose that ending. And we were like racking our brain trying to come up with a new ending. And I was like, well, what if she stood up and she broke her leg? And the first thing Lauren said was like, you snapped. And then we had that like hilarious ending. But it was really about like being in a room full of people with different life experiences. I had the germ of an idea, but because the other women had the other pieces of the idea, like that's where you get the whole sketch.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because like the cool privilege of the room of the show is that we have Ashley and Robin, who are performers on the show, in the room. So like, for example, like I believe firmly in like, you have to read comedy out loud, because like something can look bomb on the page, and then when you say it, it's like, it doesn't sound quite right. So we read a lot of stuff out loud, and Robin was reading the Dr. Hadassah character early in season 1, just so we could hear the jokes out loud. And her page got stuck together between like turning it. And so she kept saying CCC because that was the last line on the page. And she was filling time by saying CCC. And the second that everyone in the room heard that repetitiveness, that told us everything we needed to know about the character. Like we thought we knew the character. We're like, okay, she's a pseudo-intellectual. She has these, kind of weird, extreme views. But the CCC tells us that this person will not cede the floor ever. They will continue talking even when they don't know where they're going. And the second we heard in that voice, we're like, that's Dr. Hadassah. And so it's really this magical moment where stuff kind of, the page and the people come together in this really cool way.
That's great. That's great. I mean, so organic to kind of find those little hooks into the character, for sure. As performers, Ashley and Gabrielle, how do you typically go about, once something is on the page, you're handed a script for the first time, are you trying to make these characters super grounded and based in reality? Is that kind of the secret to sketch comedy? Or how do you kind of go about building a character from one sketch to the next?
Yeah, I think trying to find, stay grounded in the reality, even regardless of how absurd the situation is, it's 1000% serious to that person in that situation. And I played a lot of characters that are just like, girl, what are you thinking? One of my favorite characters last season, it was a tough on drugs campaign. It was just like how intense she got about being tough on drugs. It was just insane, but she was very serious about it. And I think that's what made it funny, because it was serious to her. Mm-hmm. And even in this season with, and last season with the Elisa character and the gang retreat and the gang orientation, she's serious about her company and her people and her troops, and she's like, I want you to take this seriously. She's very intense about it. Because she's passionate. And watching it's hilarious to us, but to her in that moment, it's very real. It's very high stakes. Mm-hmm. It's very much hit that Padmasana pose because we got work to do. We got to find this work-life balance. And so I just think it's great that these characters in their own world, in their own space, stay in a reality that is true to them. Regardless of how absurd it looks to us on the outside. Even with the Carly Chanel character, she's a scam artist for sure, but she believes in her scam. She believes her books make sense. She believes that these people that are coming to her seminars are there because they're huge believers into what she's saying, and she's got to sell her message, Mm-hmm. So it's just like looking at it from a stand-up comedy space, we're just like, this lady is insane, but we enjoy watching it because she's so over the top. But in her truth, in her reality, she's there. She means every word she's saying.
And to kind of build off of that, Ashley, do you find yourself writing sketches for yourself, or is it more often you kind of playing other people's ideas? What's the balance between writing and acting, and how does one kind of inform the other?
Definitely both. What's great about this season 2 specifically is we had made the whole first season, so I felt like I knew, and all the writers knew the actors so well that it made it even easier and more exciting to write season 2. So I definitely sometimes have a character that I'm like, this is something I've always wanted to do, or even sometimes just like, this is always something I've wanted to see a plus size bitch do. Uh, so might as well be me because I'm on the show. But I also have those feelings about like, oh, this is something I've always wanted to see Gabrielle do. This is something I've always wanted to see Robin do. And a lot of times, you know, like I said, I'm just reflecting what's going on in my life. And it's like, we'll find out which actor ends up playing that character because everyone's so great. And we hadn't even met Lacey when we were writing the season, and she, you know, falls into every part perfectly. But as to what Gabrielle was saying, I was thinking, I also am always looking in the script of like, what does this character want? And a sketch character will do anything to get what they want. And that Carly Chanel sketch, my character doesn't want to be a bridesmaid. And you can't play that because that's not what's happening in the sketch, but you can play, I will literally do anything to get something, and you don't find out what it is till the end. And I think that's what makes a character feel grounded, because we've all been in those moments where you're like desperate to get something, even if you're not sure what it is.
That's great. And Ashley, you say that you kind of pull from what's happening in your own life. I wanted to open up the room, and anyone can weigh in on this, but obviously part of the series is also inspired by current events and current conversations, hot topics, especially as they relate to Black women. I'm curious how the last year has kind of informed your approach to the material, if at all.
Well, for season 2, to speak about that specifically, we finished writing season 2 about Valentine's Day of 2020. So this material was like in the can, already written. We were about to start filming, and then COVID hit and everybody had to, you know, have a seat. So when it was safe to come back to work, Robin and I went through the material and we, you know, updated anything that needed to be updated or made changes and stuff. But it definitely, like, the conversations we had were like, okay, we really love these sketches. We really love the world of these sketches. What do we get out of like pulling people back into the reality that we're kind of all living through right now? And I think it's a testament to how universal themes can be, no matter if, I like to say that the show is like, it is evergreen and it is relevant, but it's without being topical. So you can discuss themes of loneliness, you can discuss themes of relationships, of people getting on your nerves, of trying to get something out of other people, all those things that we talk about, like in the interstitial arcs, for example, or, you know, the wanting to go to somebody's wedding, like that's even more relevant now after COVID too. So it's like so many of those themes that are so relevant to us are ultimately universal, which really popped in a way that even I don't think we were expecting, you know, in the showing the show after COVID, having written it before.
Yeah, that's such a great distinction, the relevant but not necessarily topical. I like the evergreen treatment of these themes. That's great. Well, as you know, Backstage's bread and butter. We are kind of the creators and the actors earlier on in their careers. I'd love to go around just for your best piece of advice for a career in the arts, whether it be a position like a writer, actor, a position like Gabrielle, who you're bringing to life various characters across genres. Lauren, you're the head writer and EP of a series. So kind of the piece of advice that you would have offered your younger self when you were getting started in this field. And Lauren, we can start with you.
I definitely think the best advice that I would have liked to receive, and that I tried to put in action once I received it, was look to the people next to you, like really find good people next to you. I think it's very easy to get lured into being like, okay, well, here's a person that's where I want to be, and it's good to have goals. But ultimately, the people that you rise with are the people that are going to give you great advice. They're going to give you jobs. You're going to give each other jobs. You're going to information share and rise together. So it's really about the people who are to your left and to your right at this point in your career, because those will be your longtime collaborators. Those will be the people who will tell you the honest truth about your work. And they will tell you if it is good or if it is not. Like, those are the people that you can really trust and lean on for a long time. And so don't, just because somebody is also, you know, at the level that you're at right now, don't discount what you guys can offer each other.
Absolutely. Ashley, over to you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Something I would add to that is figure out what you have to say and what you do best that no one else can do, and do that. And that sounds really basic, but it's difficult to do because as you're meeting with producers, meeting with agents, meeting with managers, like when I was coming up, it was Amy Schumer. Can you be Amy Schumer? Amy Schumer is killing being Amy Schumer. She's really good at it. We don't need another Amy Schumer. And if I tried to model myself into her, then I would walk into the room and they'd be like, well, why would we get discount Amy Schumer when we could get the real one? You know what I mean? So as much as people will try to fit you in the box, really resist and really hone what's interesting and unique and different about you that only you can do. And definitely learn all the rules, learn all the formats, but always put yourself into it and stick to that. And you will go so much further when you finally do get there, because it'll be like, oh my gosh, we've never seen this before, as opposed to, oh, it's another one of those, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great.
I would say for sure, because it took me a while in my career to realize this, and I think just recently, is not dimming your lights, and not, if it scares you, do it. Challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. It's that tried and true. If you believe it, other people can. So I would say definitely not dimming your light or lessening yourself and your abilities, worrying about what other people are doing, what other people may think. Just staying true, like Ashley was saying, to yourself and tapping into what it is that makes you special. And for me, it's all about a balance of not only the art of what we do as creatives and as artists, it's also the human side of that. And I think all of that intertwines is that it's very, very important to find something outside of that space to escape from, to release, to find other joy. Because if you're only relying on that, it's a very, very fickle business, as we know. That is going to lead you to what I call after depression, or it leads you to that space where you're in doubt and you're stressed and you're putting so much pressure on yourself and you feel like you have to, it's this mad race to the finish line. And the beauty of our business is there is no limit on age when it comes to being able to do something in some format and have a successful career. And I've seen it done so many times. But it's about really finding something outside of the business, I think, because not forgetting that you're a whole human being first and not just an artist. So you cannot forget that special, unique part of you, not only as an artist, but as what makes you special outside of that. Like what do you want to be remembered as? And tapping into that. If it's playing the harp, if it's fishing, if it's whatever, some kind of a craft, anything that brings you joy, that gives you that sense of space, because you have to be able to disconnect when things get tough in this business. And I think a discussion we don't have enough about is like mental sanity and health and happiness and joy that extends beyond just what we do for a living. It has to be as a whole human being. Because I think that then it lends itself to make you a better artist as well.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that this is an industry where your value is kind of inherently tied to what you do, or what feels like your self-value. And it's so important to be able to tether yourself to something outside of the profession to find that value, to find that satisfaction. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, this was such a great opportunity to pick your brain a little bit. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining Backstage and all our viewers today. I really do appreciate you rolling with the punches too. This was super illuminating though. I'm a big fan, and congrats again on season 2 and 3.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And shout out to Robin. We love you. We miss you. We wish you were here.
Shout out to Robin, of course. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you're interested in joining for the rest of BackstageFest, it's happening tomorrow and Friday, kicking off tomorrow with a Barry Jenkins masterclass at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's over on our YouTube channel. Again, the full calendar of events and everything else that's coming out can be found at backstage.com/magazine. So Gabrielle, Ashley, Lauren, thank you again, and stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching.